resources and that sort of stuff. So there we go. The Small Business Mastermind series. Ain't nothing going to happen if we ain't sell nothing. No one, nothing happens until somebody sells something. With me is my special guest star and expert, Ian Lowe from GoGivers Australia, and more about Ian and myself a bit later. Say hi, Ian.
Hi, Ian.
There you go. This is what today's webinar is going to look like. We're going to give you a whole heap of stuff, as much as we can cram into your brain in the time we have. So hang on. And again, this is one of my favourite topic, and it, you know, it has to be said that most of my webinars are my favourite topic, because otherwise I wouldn't run them. But it's totally Ian's pet topic, so we can go on about this topic for hours and hours and hours. So stop us when it gets boring. But just in case, I'll let you know now. It's looking at what we want to go through and what we're expecting, what interaction we're expecting to get, and how many people are on the line. I suppose there's a fairly good chance that we're going to run over time a bit by 15 minutes or so. We could cut stuff out, but it'd be a real shame. So if you can hang in for an extra 15 minutes today, that'd be really cool. You will get, of course, the recording. So if you must leave, you must leave. We'll check how we go with that a bit later. But just so you know, by the way, we're not going to sell anything today, right? We're just going to try and fill your head full of food for thought. And then we'll give you some information on how you can take a couple of really simple next steps forward with all that food for thought, if you want to. So, general comment about these webinars and this kind of process. It's been proven time and time again that passively sitting and listening to someone talking means that you're going to get 90% of what you've heard in less than a week. So if you want to get as much return on your investment of time in being part of this workshop, you need to participate. And the best way to ensure you do that and that you're focused is by working through the set of worksheets as we go along, and you can download them from that link at the top of your chat window. The worksheets are set out so you can go along the sheets as we're working through them. If you have a question, please put up your hand. If you click at the My Mood button, you can put up your hand, or you can type in the chat window, or both. And if possible, we shall interact with that pronto. Please don't do any of this. You're going to get distracted by Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, email, text message, blah, 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 blah. Turn it all off. Turn it all off. You don't think that you're going to be focused on Facebook and get value from this workshop at the same time. It won't happen. It really actually won't even happen for the women, because multitasking is a myth, honestly. It is, absolutely. But I'm a man, so I would say that. So this is our agenda for today. Somebody says you don't have the worksheets. Can't quite read what that person said there, Lynn. The link, the sheets link, because it's at the top of the screen there. The top of the screen, the top of the chat screen, immediately below the word chat. Go down a little bit, you see a blue HTTP new perspectives, and it goes on. It's a big long link. Click on that. That will take you straight to where the worksheet can be downloaded. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to check in where you are on this topic of sales. We're going to talk about why sales is, serious, and why we must take it more seriously. Somebody doesn't have the top section. How does that work? Okay, well, let's see if we. You don't have the word chat? Anyway, okay, let's see. Did everybody get that hyperlink that I just... Oh, okay, let's see, hang on. How can I send this to everyone? Let's see. Send to everyone there, bang. Okay, trying again. Now, did everybody get that link? Got it, great, okay, good.
Technology, great, Roland.
It's lovely, it's lovely, it's lovely. It's even better if people actually read their emails. We would have the link earlier. But I wouldn't say such a nasty thing. Okay, let's keep going. So we're going to check in. We're going to talk about why you should take sales more seriously. I'm going to read you one of my infamous business bedtime stories. We're going to talk about why sales doesn't actually have to be so scary. And we're going to talk about why everyone can become good at sales. And we're going to talk about the 5 key principles of effective sales. And then we're going to talk about trust. We're going to talk about trust a lot today. And we're going to talk about giving a lot today. Then there'll be another story from Ian. We're going to give you some information to take those next steps if you're interested. And then we're going to get into action, because nothing happens unless we take action. Any questions, please ask. Right? Put up your hand and go for it. Or right. Okay, here we go. That's Ian. Isn't he handsome?
Thanks, Roland.
Tell us about yourself, Ian.
Well, hi everybody. As Roland said, I'm Ian Lowe. I'm the CEO of GoGivers Australia, and we're a new kind of sales, performance, training, coaching, and consulting company, and we offer a unique culture-defining philosophy and framework that makes giving value the cornerstone of a refreshingly open and authentic approach to sales. So hopefully we'll be able to share some of that with you today, and you'll learn that thinking like a go-giver is not only a more fulfilling, satisfying way to live life and conduct business, it's also very financially profitable as well.
Yes, and that's a very nice thing to be profitable. So, and it is. It's very good. So, and for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Roland Hanekroot. I'm a business coach and mentor, and I help small business owners become less daunted and less overwhelmed in their lives as business owners, and instead to have fun in their business and build businesses that sustain them for years to come. And I'm also the author of a trilogy of business books for small business owners, the 10 Truths books for business owners. And that is the cover page of Truth 7 from book 1, which is, as you can see, the topic of our webinar today. So this is what we want to achieve today. This is our outcomes. We want you to take away from attending this workshop the insights that why sales seems so much harder than it is, than it needs to be. We want you to get why all sales starts with the concept of value,
or maybe even the reality of value, huh?
The reality of value. Wow.
How about that?
That's big. And look, why anyone can be successful at sales. Fourth, why most successful people give more than they get. And we all want you to leave with a greater appreciation about how important it is to be great at what you do, as well as to be great at running your business. Because a lot of business owners, like I was as well, great tradespeople and professionals, and we all know a lot about our profession or our trade, but to be a great small business owner and to build a fun business and sustain you for years to come, you have to have a solid understanding of all the key aspects of developing your business, not just your profession or your trade. And so these are the key aspects of business that all of us business owners wrestle with from time to time. Vision, mission, and purpose, planning, strategic thinking, goal setting, numbers and taking control of your business, financial management and profit, cash flow, so all about finance, marketing, customers, sales, systemization and the rhythm of business, your staff, your people, your team, and finally leadership, you. And
it's a big list.
It is. Feels a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's too much to focus on. It's overwhelming and it's daunting, and it's simply doing your head in. So before we go on, I'd like you to go to your worksheet, and on the 3rd page you'll see a question with some space underneath it. And the question is this: right now, right at this moment, this coming month, what is the biggest challenge you face in your business? What's the one thing that keeps you awake most? So take a moment to write that answer down on your worksheet, and I'll give you a minute's silence to think about that while I fill up my cup of tea. And the next thing I'd like you to think about, because just below the box you filled in on page 2 of your worksheet about your most pressing issue, is another box called My Outcome, or page 3 actually, My Outcome for participating. So take a moment and decide what you want to get from being here today. What are you going to walk away with that would constitute good use of your time, in other words? And then what I want to do is this: I want to encourage you to do what you need to do to actually make sure you get that outcome. Because Ian and I can't take responsibility for giving you what you want to get. We can only be responsible for our own outcomes, as I listed before. So check in with yourself as we're going along. Let's get started and let's check in how everyone feels about their customer engagement, their sales performance, their sales effectiveness. Where are you with this right now? And so I'm going to run a poll. Like my polls. Where's the poll? Yeah, I've got to load it. Here goes. 5 questions. There, it's also on your worksheet. Is it page 4? Is it? Can you just check? Yeah, that's page 4. So page 4 of your worksheet is where those questions are repeated. So the question is: when I think of doing sales, what I feel is A, frustrated. My customers mostly seem to be interested in price, and to close the sale, more about that later, I often have to discount my prices. Awkward because I don't want to come across like a used car salesman. Or C, I'm annoyed because my customers don't really trust me when I try to advise them. Or D, all of the above from time to time. It just depends on when you ask me. Or E, I'm excited because I love talking to potential customers and showing them how I or my product address their need exactly and closing the deal, and I never have to discount. So tell us what you would pick: A, B, C, D, or E. Got a few votes in by now. Around sales, do you feel A, frustrated because everybody just seems to be interested in price all the time, or awkward because you don't want to come across as a used car salesman, or annoyed because customers really don't trust you when you try and advise them? All of the above from time to time. It just depends on when you ask me. Or excited because you love talking to customers and showing them how you or your product addresses their need and closing the deal with them. A couple more votes coming in. Everybody done and dusted. What Julia say?
Done and dusted?
No, they're saying all done, going once. Yeah, so just something I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Yep, I think we've got most votes coming in, so we'll stop voting now. And there we go. So I had a couple of people who scored E, which is great to see. And then it's a pretty even spread between A, B, C, and D, to be honest. And look, it's what do you think? What's your expectation of that? Does that surprise you, Ian?
No, I think it's a good spread there, Roland. It's good to see there's a few people that actually embrace the idea and are excited about talking to their customers and helping them.
But there's a lot of people who feel awkward and frustrated, and a lot of people who feel they need to discount their prices to be able to get the sale, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that's why, if we don't take sales seriously, we don't really take it seriously, then you cannot run a business without selling, because every single business in the world that does well sells well. And if you don't sell well in your business, you always struggle to develop the business where you'd like it to be. And if you don't sell well, you'll end up walking around with your fingers crossed
Yeah, it's one of my favorite management techniques, Roland. Is management by keeping your fingers crossed out.
Yeah, I'm really good at it too. Yeah. And it would be a fantastic business management book, wouldn't it? It's titled, Management by Keeping Your Fingers Crossed. Maybe I'll write I'll actually write a book with that title, or a cartoon for, or The Office. So, but of course the problem with all of this is that if you've answered A, B, C, or D in the poll above, your margins are always going to be under pressure. Your conversion rate will be high, meaning you need to talk to a large number of prospects to get a client, and your business will simply not be as much fun as you'd like it to be. And hence, therefore, the purpose of this call: how can we take some practical steps to make sales for our business a bit easier? And this is what we're talking about. I'm going to talk a bit further. We're going to talk about a bit further about why trying to build a fun business that sustains you for years to come without a dedicated professional focus on sales is a hopeless task. As we saw in the poll, sales is a big nasty for a lot of us, and Ian will explain why it really doesn't need to be. Everyone can learn to become a good salesperson. We're going to run through the 5 principles of effective sales, and some of them might actually surprise you, because it all starts with trust. And then it turns out that the most effective way to build trust, the most effective way to build trust is to be a giver as opposed to be a taker.
Absolutely. Don't want to be one of those takers.
Exactly. And we've had a comment from someone, from Melissa, says that she lacks confidence selling something that she's handmade herself. And look, we're going to be talking a lot more about that process. So we'll just take your question on board down the track, if that's okay with you, Melissa. So we're going to give you also a couple of little case histories to illustrate various bits of these points, and as always, we'll leave you with some really practical steps that you can take to get more effective at sales in your business. So let's get into it. It may seem obvious, but many business owners fall into the trap of thinking that if their products, their services, and their marketing are good enough, that sales will just follow automatically.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? But it doesn't. It doesn't. Well, it happens. It does happen for some people. It happened for Steve Jobs and Apple. And, because we've all seen Apple fans queue around the block for the next iPhone, but I can assure you that even in those circumstances, Apple has trained its sales staff really well to be able to maximize the sales opportunities once people are actually in the door.
In fact, I might not have told you this, Roland, but in the US, every Apple recruit, every new Apple recruit gets a copy of the GoGiver book.
Oh, really?
As part of their induction pack.
See, I knew that deep inside. That's why I haven't read about that yet. But for normal people in normal businesses, our customers won't behave like the typical Apple fans, at least not at first. And a fun business that sustains you for years to come can therefore only exist if it sells enough of its stuff at prices that allow the business to pay for all of its costs and have something left over. And if it doesn't, it won't last, or it's just a hobby. A bit like these guys. And it's just a hobby, plain and simple. Now, I may not be telling you anything you didn't know already, but it's important to be reminded nothing happens until somebody sells something. That means that sales must have a dedicated focus in the business. It can't be an afterthought. We have to do sales regularly, consistently, professionally. Meaning we have to make it important enough, and we have to make sure we get good at it. But as we saw in the poll, a lot of business owners feel frustrated, awkward, embarrassed, and annoyed about sales. They think it's hard and challenging, and ideally they'd like to do as little of it as possible. And if and when they do employ salespeople in the business, they don't understand how to manage them because they don't feel comfortable in sales themselves. So, time to get Ian involved. Ian, explain to us why sales doesn't need to be anywhere near as hard as we often think it is.
Well, it's a great question, Roland. And when we think about sales in today's market as well, I mean, what is sales? I mean, it used to be about the sales force, didn't it? But really now everybody in a business is in sales.
Yeah.
And, I think many of us have a fear-based relationship with sales. So on the customer side, they're afraid that they'll be sold something that doesn't ultimately solve their problem. It doesn't deliver the outcome they're looking for, and they've spent money on something that ultimately isn't going to be any use to them. And on the salesperson side, or on the business owner side, they're afraid that if they don't make enough sales, they won't meet their targets or their quota or grow as a business and be prosperous, and they won't succeed personally. So this fear drives the relationship, and unfortunately the distrust it creates gets in the way, and it causes both the customer and the salesperson to behave in ways that make the whole process uncomfortable, frustrating, and awkward. Basically, some of the things we talked about in the call, you know?
Yeah.
That, in fact, the whole selling things carry so much baggage, right? I mean, that word sales even can fill people with fear. It conjures up so many negative feelings and experiences. And plus, most of us don't think we're any good at it. We don't think our customers will like it, and we don't like doing it much either. So, but the great news is there are some very simple things we can do to free ourselves of this fear and this baggage and this negativity we all have about this scary thing called sales.
I love that. I love your attitude, your approach to it. So you're saying that anyone can become a good, effective salesperson in their business, don't you?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, anyone can be truly. I mean, not just good at sales, truly great at sales. Just to give you a bit of a story. Prior to leading GoGivers here in Australia, I was sales director with professional services firm Deloitte, where I worked with accountants. And I don't know if you spend much time, anybody in the course spent much time with accountants or professional services firms, but typically these are technical people.
Yeah.
They're not good at sales. They don't really understand sales. And that was my experience at Deloitte. They didn't really have a clue. They knew they needed to get better at it, but they didn't like the idea of selling. And even in that anti-sales environment, we were able to share with people the principles of the GoGiver philosophy and create sales superstars and turn these accountants into very focused people that delivered a lot of value, and that resulted in the business division that I ran being one of the most successful and fastest growing and most profitable divisions in the firm.
That's great. Look, I've seen the same thing myself. Well, to be honest, I used to be one of those plutzers until yesterday. I used to get to the end of many sales. Actually, this afternoon, I used to get to the end of many sales conversations, and could tell that people were totally confused and looking for the exit sign. Not a great feeling. And as a result, I started telling myself that sales was really hard.
Yeah, that's right. We do. We tell ourselves stories, don't we? But with the right mindset, it's much easier than you think. And I haven't met anyone for whom sales couldn't become at least 50% easier.
Right. Yeah. It certainly worked for me. And as it happens, I have one of my business bedtime stories that illustrates the point that we've just been making really well. So sit back, relax, imagine I'm tucking you all into bed, and don't let the bed bugs bite. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a country not unlike Australia, George and Lisa owned a building company. So I met George a few years ago. He's a builder in Sydney with a small team of carpenters and labourers on the payroll. And George's wife, Lisa, runs the office. And George mainly builds in the sort of $500K to $1 million range, large renovations and some new homes. Now, when I met him, one of the biggest issues George faced is how much time is wasted on preparing tenders for architects. His strike rate was about 20%, and each tender, so 1 in 5, and each tender was taking him around about 20 to 40 hours of his time, between 20 and 42 hours of his time. And therefore, George spent some 20 to 30 hours each and every week of the year to win about 6 to 8 projects, if you do the math. So that's what it comes out of. So George felt he was stuck. He was frustrated because he felt he was missing out on the best years of his young kid's life. And coming, from my own experience as a builder, I used to be a builder for 20 years, I explained to him that the most effective way to get unstuck was to improve his strike rate, the rate at which he converts the tenders, quotes, into actual paying customers. So because if we could improve his strike rate from about 20% to around 1 in 3, so 33%, the impact of his business and his life would be enormous. If you do the sums on that, so the numbers I just worked up, I read out before. If you do the sums on that, it's like the impact on his time is like half. He wins half his week back. So George had an aha moment. And George set himself a 2-year target to get his conversion rate to 35%. And the first commitment he made was to become just as professional about sales as he was about every other facet of his business. We started by carefully designing and implementing a sales system that would run like a machine to manage inquiries, leads, prospects, and quotes. There are a bunch of the CRM systems. George and Lisa invested in a high-quality CRM system, one of those up there. And soon they were keeping track of prospects and leads at different stages in their sales cycles. Inquiries through email, phone, website, word of mouth, referrals were all tagged, categorized, appropriately followed up in the system by Lisa. And George also wrote a bunch of scripts for answering telephone inquiries and follow-up calls. And finally, George enrolled themselves in a 6-month sales training program. This was before I met Ian, otherwise I would have sent it to Ian straight away. But he still got an enormous benefit out of it. Because a year later, George's strike rate reached 28%, and then he got the rate down to 36% the year after. And just as importantly, though, now that George is so much more professional in his sales approach, he doesn't feel the need to negotiate on his prices anymore, and his margins have gone up significantly. They really have. It's quite massive. Story, yeah. And George and Lisa and their kids lived happily ever.
That was very well. I feel comforted with your storytelling voice as well.
Ah, yes, yeah.
That was a great story. It illustrates exactly what we've been saying. If I could just list a few points, it doesn't matter how good you are at your job, you still have to sell, right? Customers don't generally come knocking on our door wanting to buy our stuff as much as we'd like them to. No. Sales point number 2, really, sales doesn't have to be as scary as we think.
No.
If you can break it down and compartmentalize it and get professional at it, anyone can learn to do sales well and professionally and get better at it. And to make it as easy as possible for yourself, there are some very simple things like writing a few scripts for different situations that we face that can help to take the guesswork out of it. I mean, a lot of the situations that we face are predictable.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising that, and scripts are incredibly powerful. Really simple things, but it's incredibly powerful. Yeah.
And the reality is the final point really, the number one determinant of sales success has nothing to do with gift of the gab or your character or your being an outgoing or any different type of personality. The number one determinant of sales success is practice.
Yeah.
Practice really does make perfect.
Yeah. And George is the perfect example of that general malaise. George just assumed, and it really surprised him, really. I remember the conversation as well. He just assumed that as long as he did a good job, the jobs would just come to him. But they don't. Well, rather, doing good work and preparing professional quotes may give you a lot of opportunities to put in proposals, but it absolutely doesn't close the sale. You need to step up and you need to become a salesperson.
That's an interesting term, Roland. Close the sale. It's something we explore in our programs. In fact, there's a lot of language that's established in the sales world that we question, and closing the sale or making the sale is one of those things that can put you in a mindset that will take you down a path that ultimately can lead you to failure. For example, if we pick on that, idea of closing the sale or making the sale, something that you do to someone, and it typically puts you in a mindset where you're thinking about using a technique to try and close the sale. So you're thinking about you and the technique you're going to use. You're thinking about, closing the sale so you can make your target. You're thinking about your product or your service, but your mindset is all about you.
Yeah.
And one thing we know, that sales isn't about you at all. It's not about your product. It's not about your service. It's not about you or your targets. Sales is about the other person and the value they're looking for.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking about making the sale or closing sales, we suggest to focus your efforts on receiving the sale. You know, let me just explain what I mean by that, because it can sound a bit weird, right? The reality is that in any free market economy, you can't make someone do something they don't want to do. You know, people will do what people will do. They'll make their own decisions.
Yeah.
You know, what you want to do is to create an environment where your customer or your client, whatever you refer to them as, comes to understand that there's so much value in them buying from you.
Yeah.
You know, during this process of during the sales cycle, they've come to get to know you, they get to like you, they come to build trust with you, and they want to buy your product or service or your solution. What you need them to be ready to receive it rather than to try and make it. And the great news is, if you create that type of environment where the trust is there and the value's there, they'll not only buy from you and be happy that they did, they'll even be ecstatic that they purchased from you, while you still make a very healthy profit.
Yeah.
You see how that's the mindset's different?
Yeah. Look, I knew you'd jump on me for that, using the term closing the sale, because it is a horrible term, and I hate it as well. But it's I've always found it difficult to think what else you need to think about. I sometimes think of the term asking for a sale, but I think receiving the sale is probably a much better way of thinking about it. So just check in. Does anybody have any questions at the moment? Any questions, please speak up now. Any questions? In the meantime, we have had one question from Kelvin. Kelvin's also a builder, I believe. Where's Kelvin? He's in Perth. Yeah. Kelvin says for him, at every quote, he does it always comes down to price. So Kelvin reckons that it doesn't matter how good he's at sales, because if he's not the lowest quote, he won't get the job. Do you want to go with that, Ian, or should I
take it?
Yeah. So look, it's a great comment. Thanks, Kelvin. But we will be answering that question a bit further on. But just quickly, I know what you're talking about, because so I'm an ex-builder myself, right? And look, no matter what you do, your price has got to be right. If 4 builders are pricing a job and 3 of them come in with a price of around $450, and you alone come in with a price of $550, you're going to make your life pretty hard. But if you're also in the same ballpark, that's what we're talking about. You can't be twice as expensive for exactly the same product, but not even in tightly regulated government tenders is price the thing that decides the successful bid. So we probably haven't quite convinced you yet, Kelvin, but bear with us for a bit longer, and we'll get on.
I might just add something to that, Roland. I think it's also you may be able to justify higher prices if you can help the client to see there's value that they hadn't seen before. If you help them to see their issue or their challenge in new ways, and you identify for them additional value, and that value can be justified in your price, then sure, people are willing to pay more for more value.
Yeah.
That's how you might differentiate what you're doing as opposed to somebody else.
No, absolutely. I mean, I suppose price is one of the components of value, of course. I think the business development world has done us a disservice saying you should never sell on, by saying you should never sell on price. Of course, price is part of the value equation. If you sell a litre of milk and I sell a litre of milk, and you sell it for $10 and I sell it for $2, I really have to give something, or you'd have to give something really, really, really special with that litre of milk for me to be interested to spend $10 on it, right?
And there's a good example of that right now. They're coming out with there's so many different types of milk these days, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's that A2 milk that they bought.
I haven't seen that one.
There's this milk called A2. I think it's a bit more expensive.
Yeah.
It's got this protein in it apparently that means that you can
jump tall buildings.
Jump tall buildings, maybe. But you can drink it without having, some people have problems with dairy products. So they're coming out with these different variations of milk.
Yeah.
And people will pay more for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, look, I pay more for my, I probably buy the most expensive soy milk that you can be, because there's a whole bunch of, So Brad said, my first issue was fully understanding what I was selling. Yeah, that's a really insightful comment, because it's actually, we are coming back to that in one of the 5 principles, because one of the 5 principles that we'll talk about soon is that the client's got to understand what your offer is and what the value is. And if you don't really truly understand what your offer and your value is, then you can't communicate it to the customers. And I had the same experience. So we'll come back to that, I think. Where are we going?
So I think...
the most important factors. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I think it'd be great to talk about the 5 factors for effective sales. Well, I think Kelvin would appreciate that.
There you go. That's where they are. So these are the 5 key factors for winning quotes and proposals and selling more of your stuff. For a client to want to buy from you, to actually say, yes, give me some of that, and I'm keen to give you some of my money in return, these 5 things have to happen. 1, the client must trust you with a capital T. More about that trust and how to gain trust a bit later. Trust is going to be a big topic for us. 2, the client understands what your offer is. 3, the client understands how that offer, once they've understood what the offer is, they understand how that offer is of value to them personally. 4, the client can picture how good they're going to feel when you've completed the work, or when they've bought the thing that you're selling. And 5, given all the previous factors, the price is right. So now you have a look at that list, and you notice that price is at the bottom. So don't allow yourself to fall in the trap of thinking that you lose sales because of price. If you lose a sale because of price, you simply haven't done a good enough job of addressing the other factors. Trust me. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. I think it's a powerful list, Roland. That trust factor is absolutely key. It's such a key thing that's lacking in our low trust society today. And here at GoGivers, we always like to refer to what we call the golden rule of sales, of business, of networking. And the golden rule tells us that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
It used to be that it's not what you know, it's who you know. But it's not that case anymore. It's who you know, like, and who know, like, and trust you, right?
Yeah.
So trust is totally, absolutely key. And as I said, in this low trust world, it seems that every day we hear of another corporate scandal where Joe Public has been taken advantage of or manipulated in some way. I'm sure everybody in the call here is aware of the CBA and Macquarie Bank financial advisory scandals, where these big banks with big brands used aggressive sales techniques to get great results for the bank and make lots of money for the bank. But it actually meant, in many cases, thousands and thousands of people, meant financial ruin for their clients. And that's really the challenge, right? Because people read this, people see this in the newspapers, they see movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, and they see these awful behaviors. So the starting point of the interaction with the salesperson is, I don't trust you. And it's understandable, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Before we dig deeper into trust, though, I think we need to just answer, we just need to talk about those other 4 or 3 of those 5 factors, and then we'll get back to trust. We want to spend a lot more time on trust. So, factors 2, 3, and 4 hang together. Because first of all, you have to be able to spell out your offer to the client in language and terms that are meaningful to them. And it comes back to what Brad was saying. My first issue was fully understanding what I was selling, as Brad said. But yeah, so that's got to start with you truly understanding. And it's exactly what one of the issues that I felt short in some years back. Because remember, before I said that I was a class until yesterday about that, and then that I'd leave my customers confused. Well, that's exactly what I did. It's entirely exactly what I did, and it's precisely what Brad's saying, that his first issue is understanding what he was selling, what he was selling himself, and that's what I had to work that out myself. And then I didn't spell my offer out clearly, so it was easy to understand what I offered, and clients would be left literally scratching their heads or looking like Sarah Palmer. And
you don't want to do that. You don't want to lawyer, do you?
No, definitely don't want to look like Sarah Palmer, and not even on a good day. And if there's one thing I've learned is that the confused prospect is never going to become a customer. People who are confused are always going to unconfuse themselves first, and they may do so by talking to one of your competitors, and if that competitor helps them get unconfused, you lost the customer, right?
It's an interesting strategy, that, Roland. Confuse your customers and send them to your competitors.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's going to catch on, but
no, it didn't work all that well for me for years either. I tested it out properly, and I'm here to tell you that it's been scientifically proven it's not a great sales strategy. So just take it from me. Yeah.
It's so true. And the next principle, value, number 3 in the list, is incredibly important and hangs together with trust.
Yeah. So you remember this number 3, value. Yeah.
And we'll hear a little bit more on that as we go through, but you've really got to be clear about your value, the value of your offer to the customer. Nobody's going to buy from us because we have a target to meet, or we have bills to pay, or we have staff to pay, or we've got stock to sell. People will only buy because they realize, they come to understand there's more value in them buying from you than them not buying from you.
Yeah.
To illustrate, imagine a customer going into a hardware store to buy a drill. Right?
Yeah.
The drill in this situation, the drill itself, in and of itself, has no value. So if I'm the salesperson in that hardware store, waxing lyrical about the drill and the many features it has won't get me very far. The value to the customer in this situation is the hole that they need in the wall.
Yeah.
So what they want to do is hang grandma's cuckoo clock on the wall, and this cuckoo clock came all the way from Switzerland. It's got a lot of sentimental value.
Yeah.
So just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, value is in the mind of the recipient or customer. I've never understood the value in cuckoo clocks, but I'm sure someone loves cuckoo clocks. So
because the interesting thing about that, sorry to interrupt you about that, is as well, is that when you say that the customer who comes to the hardware store who's buying the drill supposedly, but is actually buying a hole in the wall to hang the cuckoo clock on.
That's right.
At that point, you're not competing against other drills anymore. You're competing at other methods of getting a hole in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So instead of spending money on buying a drill, that customer could also decide to spend the same amount of money on a handyman to hang the cuckoo clock on the wall. And that may be another kind of, you're actually competing against something entirely.
And that could be the outcome, right? I mean, you could help the customer by finding out what it is they need the drill for, and you might actually help them to understand they don't need a drill at all.
No.
And they maybe don't buy the drill from you.
No.
So you talk yourself out of a sale.
Well, yeah, perfect. Right, because they might only, if they've got plasterboard walls or something like that, they might have a little gadget that they can just nail onto the wall, and they don't need to buy. Yeah, I know.
So our purpose in this situation is a great example is to help the customer realize the value they're looking for, not to try and make a sale.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And therefore it's really important for the salesperson if the customer can picture what the cuckoo clock's going to look like as well, and how that's going to feel, because that's the 4th key factor we just mentioned. And it's the 4th key factor being, I'll remind you, that the client can picture how good they're going to feel when they've completed the work or when they've bought the thing that you're selling. So the salesperson in the hardware store needs to ask the customer what the drill is for and talk about that outcome and help the customer put the right drill and accessories together for the purpose of feeling great about having a great grandma's cuckoo clock on the wall. And that's what that process is about. Exactly
right. It's a very simple example, but it illustrates the concept perfectly. And, in reference to Kelvin's question before, you'll never get past price competition unless you're able to go through this process with your customers, help them to understand how your solution will create more value for them than anyone else's, or help them to see that actually there's a better way to achieve the outcome they're looking for than what they first had in mind. Just because you maybe didn't make the sale doesn't mean that you didn't create value for the customer. Right? So the reality is that we and our customers want the same thing, and often sales is seen as a bit of a battle. You know, we've got salespeople on the one side and we've got customers on the other, and there's this sort of fight to try and get the sale or not get the sale. You know, and it's never a great sort of interaction. But the reality is we want the same thing, so we shouldn't be fighting with each other. And I'm going to suggest that the thing that we want is a solution that exactly meets the client's need. You know, if we can help them get a solution that exactly meets their need or help them to get the value they're looking for, then we both win. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, let me just be devil's advocate there for a moment. In that, so I mean, if I'm the salesperson selling or the builder, in Kelvin's case, the builder trying to get making a proposal to people, and in the process of making the proposal, by finding out what they really want, I come up with a solution that's much cheaper and simpler for them, that achieves the outcome that they want. But in the process of that, I do myself out of a job. You say, well, we both want the same thing, but I need jobs, I need income, right?
Sure, but maybe it's not that job. Right. I mean, the key is to have a pipeline of opportunities. And some of those opportunities may not be, you may not have the right solution for some of those clients. So you don't have to close every client because you need the sale.
No.
You know, because if that's the case, then the chances are you could take on business that you're not perfectly able to deliver. And then you end up doing something that doesn't deliver the value, and then you end up with an unhappy customer.
No, it's exactly right. Yeah, I've seen it so often that people get sold into something that then they end up actually being uncomfortable with.
I think there's a lot of research in there on the cost of unhappy customers. It's pretty high, right?
I bet it is.
Not only in the cost to you because they're unhappy, but the cost to the marketplace, because they tell, especially in today's internet world, they tell everybody else about how unhappy they are. The ripple effect of that is just.
No, I got it. Cool. So you actually mentioned another great example of an accountant and the actual value that they offer. Can you give us that story as well?
We use the example of an accountant in our GoGiver coaching. We talk about it in our books as well. But you know, imagine you're going to see an accountant and you're going to get your tax returned and your business taxes. You know, I mean the value. Let's say the accountant charges you $1,000. That's their price or their fee. Right? It's a dollar amount. It is what it is. Right. But what you actually get from the accountant. Let's say you get a $10,000 tax refund from the accountant. So straight away, there's a tangible return on that investment. That fixed fee is $1,000, and straight away you've got $10,000 back. But that's just completing your tax return. That's in our accountants in this accountant example. Our accountant also is helping us to see opportunities to reduce our taxable income in other ways. Right? They're helping us to see ahead. There are things we could claim for that maybe we didn't know about. You know, they're helping us to be better prepared and more able to save money and be more efficient in the future. But they also save us in other areas. They also save us, say, 25 to 30 hours in time that we can invest in elsewhere. They give us peace of mind. They give us confidence of knowing that's the work's been done correctly, so we're not going to worry about the ATO come knocking on the door. So you see in the accountant example, we've got much more in value from them than they charged us in fee. Perfect. Both tangible and intangible.
I'm going to have to stop you there because we're going to have to move on. We're going to definitely run late already, but we need to. We don't want to run 2 hours late. But it's great. It's exactly right. So that's the list: trust, clarity, value, outcome, price. They're the five key factors of success in sales, and that leaves us with trust. That first one, because it's really important that you understand the order as well, because it starts with trust. If there's no trust, the sales process goes nowhere. And then look, there's different levels of trust. We were talking about milk before. You know, I don't need to have the same level of trust in someone I buy a litre of milk from as in someone I spend $500,000 with for renovating my house. But you can be absolutely sure. Oh, that was the accountant. You can be absolutely sure that if I don't trust you to sell me milk that is fresh and it hasn't stood out in the sun and it hasn't been watered down, I won't buy it from you, no matter how cheap it is. Plain and simple. So let's talk about trust. And I think that there are two things that create trust for a customer, and one is passion and integrity. Customers want to see that you're real, that you believe in the thing that you're selling, and especially that you're enthusiastic and even passionate about it. And second is that you have to be a giver, not a taker, hence the name of Ian's business, GoGivers. I think the first is an obvious point, and we won't belabor it, but obviously you can't create trust if you're pretending. If insincerity is not going to lead to being trusted, nor will being bored with your products or your stuff. Customers won't want to part with their money unless they believe the transaction will make them better off. And if you're bored by it, they will be too.
Yeah, it's critical, right? I mean, we like to use the word authenticity. You can't trust someone if you don't believe and if you're not passionate about the thing you sell. Your customer won't believe you unless you turn up as your authentic self.
Yeah.
And that can be hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And look, there's other techniques that help you be trusted quicker as well, such as customer testimonials and well-designed logos on websites and clean fingernails, etc. Which the last one I feel fall over sometimes, but they all fall under integrity. If you're a plumber and you turn up in a three-piece suit, chances are you won't be believed, or people will assume that you're too expensive. Instead of integrity, you could also use words like alignment, and even congruous, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, passion and integrity covers a lot. I might also add that the passion you have for your business and its service and its product should be complemented by the passion you have for creating exceptional value for your customers. We need to make sure we don't get caught up with being so evangelical about our stuff that we forget about the customer's needs and wants and desires. As much as we all love what we do, the products and services and solutions we offer in and of themselves have no value. They only create value if they solve a problem the client cares about.
Yeah, no, that's right. Great point. So, and they bear repeating. The sales isn't about your widget. It's not about solving. It's about solving a problem for a customer, a specific problem. Remember, it's not about the drill. It's about hanging grandmother's cuckoo clock on the wall. But to be clear, if you have any questions about other things that are part of building trust, pipe up. Ask right away. Put up your hand. Because the other thing about passion is that it comes back in a number of other mastermind topics that we talked about. So we're going to move on from that. But passion and authenticity is key. And so the second thing that we want to talk about, the second thing that creates trust with customers is giving, and that's completely Ian's expertise because he runs a company called GoGiving. So go for broke, Ian.
Oh, thanks, Roland. I think I could rattle on about this for a long time. But I know time's tight, so I'll keep it short. When we talk about the Go-Giver philosophy, it's all about a shift in focus. And we say it's about a shift in focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving, we mean constantly and consistently adding value to the lives of others. But typically that's not the way most people have experienced sales. Most people see sales as a getting business. It's about trying to get the client's money in your pocket and trying to get your products or services into their business. And when you can shift your thinking, you'll find it's not only a nicer way to live life and do business, it's also a very financially profitable way as well. And that's essentially the premise of the Go-Giver book, where by our founder Bob Berg and his co-author John David Mann, where the main character is a chap called Joe. It's a business parable, a fictional story. He's an ambitious, aggressive, and up-and-coming, yet very frustrated young businessman who through the course of the book learned some valuable life lessons that will transform his business and accelerate his personal success.
By the way, while Ian's talking, I'm just putting up a few slides out of the book, so they don't necessarily relate exactly to what Ian's talking about at that moment, but you'll see the relevance a bit later. So how do people respond to that idea of shifting your focus from getting to giving? Do they think it sounds naive or
unrealistic? Yeah, absolutely. It comes up a lot, and you can understand it, like we talked about before. It can be hard to believe that in today's Wall Street world, where we see corporate scandal and self-absorption, and we're faced with dog-eat-dog competition all the time, that you can actually give your way to success. That can be hard to accept.
No, it's
right?
counterintuitive.
Yeah. And that was basically the first question that Joe in the book had for his mentor, his main mentor in the book, a very wise and successful man by the name of Pindar. But what Joe comes to realize is that not only is it not naive, it's actually very practical. You see, when you can take your eyes off yourself and focus on the other person and how you can add value to them.
Yeah.
In other words, when you can go from being I or me focused to being you or other focused.
Yeah.
People feel good about you. People are much more interested in getting to know you and to like you. They're much more interested in getting to know and perhaps form a relationship with you. And of course, once that happens, great things can be produced, and everybody wins.
Yeah.
And, and we call people with this type of mindset go-givers, and they tend to be amongst the most successful people financially and in other areas of success.
Yeah, no, it's amazing actually. So people sometimes get the idea that what you're saying is that it's all about being nice, nice people.
Yeah, I think nice people finish first, right? It comes up. People equate this word giving, being a go-giver, to being nice, and we're not saying that nice people finish first. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being nice, right? I mean, I think
I'm very nice.
You are. I agree with that. It's been a very nice experience for me today. But being nice certainly makes it easier to be successful.
Yeah.
If only for the reason you're easier to get along with.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes sense, right? But it takes more than being nice to be successful. And I think I can say that with some degree of confidence, right? Because, I mean, I'm sure everybody on the call, I know I do, we know people who we describe as being simply nice people.
Yeah.
Who we'd also have to describe as being simply broke people.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just said it takes more than just being nice to be successful. So what does it take?
Well, success also requires a person to do the right things along the success process to be successful. And there are lots of books about this, but from the go-giver point of view, we refer to those things as the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And you're playing out some of the slides there are talking about the 5 laws.
Yeah, and we will get back to those 5 laws in a minute. But can you tell us a bit more what actually defines what a go-giver actually is?
Yeah, sure. When we talk about a go-giver, we're simply talking about that man or woman who's learned, maybe through coaching, through reading, through however they've learned, or who perhaps intuitively knew, because there are people that intuitively get this.
Yeah.
That it's that person that can shift their focus and take their eyes off themselves and focus on adding value to other people who ultimately accomplishes the most. And that's just not our view of the world. It's backed up by some powerful research from the Wharton Business School in the US as part of the University of Pennsylvania. A chap called Professor Adam Grant runs their School of Management and Psychology, and he read the Go-Giver book and wanted to figure out whether does giving actually lead to success. And it's a fascinating book, right? And they found that actually it does. Being a giver does actually lead to success. I'm summarizing because we're short of time, but I would certainly recommend people read the book.
Yeah, Adam Grant's Give and Take. It's really a phenomenal book. There's also there's a couple of great videos of him speaking on. He's got a bit of an annoying voice, I have to say, but he speaks very well. So successful people actually start from a point of wanting to give. It's give first. It's this concept of giver's gain. give without expectation of return. There's a big topic in that as well. We are both members of, and there's a few people at this call who are a member of BNI, and that whole concept of givers gain and giving without expectation of return comes in there a lot. So we're going to skip through that a little bit, and we're going to talk about those 5 laws in a little bit more detail, but not too much, because I think those 5 laws in themselves are a whole webinar on to do.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
But I'll get you to. These are all the 5 laws together.
Yeah.
So can you go through them quickly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, the foundational law is this law of value. The law of value tells us that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. That's the foundational thinking that everything else is built from. And then the law of compensation tells us that your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. You see the language here is about serving, it's about value. The law of influence, again, builds on that. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Not in any kind of martyrish way.
No.
The law of authenticity, we touched on that before. I think it relates to Melissa's question before, lacking confidence in selling something that you handmade yourself, right? You know, often people have this issue about authenticity, turning up as themselves and seeing that they have some genuine, authentic value to bring into the world. You know, and again, it could be a whole webinar on that. But we probably spend a lot of our time on the final 2 laws, the law of authenticity and the law of receptivity. Now, the first 4 laws are all about giving value to the other person, to the customer. The final law, the law of receptivity, which says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. That's when you receive the sale. That's all about the sale itself. And if you've done the first 4 steps well, you've earned the right to receive. And you just need to be open to receiving it.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, look, I've read the book, and I've also the second book called GoGivers Sell More. If anything, I found the second book even more powerful than the first book, actually. But they're both really powerful, and they really changed my way of looking at business. Actually, and they're very easy to read. So, and you're making a special offer in relation to those books a bit further on, so people want to delve further into this stuff for themselves. So hang on for that. In the interest of time, we're going to skip over a little bit further. So let's recap where we are. And please, it's time for you to also reflect yourself on what's come up for you, what's come up for you, but everything you've heard us talk about, the bedtime story, the example stories, the principles, the questions. So please type in your comments or questions there now. Ask yourself, what are the top 3 insights or learnings that you've had from this webinar so far? And maybe you've got more questions than insights, and what are those top questions? So please go ahead and write them down now. You can write them down for yourself in your own worksheet. There's space in your worksheet for that. I think it might be page 7, probably page 8. Yes, the top of page 8. And I'm going to give you another minute silent to just write those things down, and then if anybody wants to come back with any questions, that would be fantastic. There's a minute silence while I fill up my cup of tea.
You like your tea, don't you?
I do like my tea.
What type of tea is that, Roland?
This is green tea with lemon and myrtle.
Oh, very nice.
Organic, very valuable. There is enormous value in this tea.
That's the biggest teapot I've ever seen.
That's so expensive. Yes, it is. Interesting question from Tanya there. How do you sell something for free?
That's an interesting question.
That one, or do you? I'm not 100% sure what I know.
I think the question. I'd like a little bit more information if you could give us a little bit more of a breakdown, Tanya. What you mean there? So
I'm going to live on the wild side here. I'm going to unmute Tanya.
Oh, go for it. Can we listen?
And hopefully, Disconnect the button. How does that work? Sorry.
Can we let Tanya talk?
To unmute. Oh yes. Promote to presenter.
Tanya.
And then unmute Tanya.
Can you hear us, Tanya?
Yes. Can you should be able to speak at this moment, Tanya.
I think I'm on now.
Yes.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Roland. Hi, Ian. Hi, everybody else.
Hello.
Yeah, the service that we have is it's free. We earn our income stream not through direct payment from the client, and that can actually cause a little bit of distrust, I guess, in a way, because people sort of are a little bit skeptical of something that's free, but it is actually free and there isn't actually a catch.
But but your issue there is that that people don't trust it yet. They think there must be, so they don't trust you. They don't trust. There's not enough trust there. Would that be what you're saying?
I think the difficulty is it's a new concept that a lot of people possibly don't understand, and possibly, as Brad mentioned, perhaps fully understanding what we're selling, that the product is or service is free. We get the income stream through other means. So there's no. So I think that probably the difficulty is actually people feeling like they're having any investment in the service if they're not paying.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. It makes me think of I know the guys at LinkedIn quite well, and this may not be a direct comparison, but in terms of the free part, it might be something that's relevant. I know for the longest time when LinkedIn first came out, it was free. They struggled to get traction, and there was a point in time when they sort of reached that tipping point where enough people started to talk about it and get value from it, even though it was free. Enough people started to use it, and they then brought in other people. Who then now they're really well established. But the interesting thing is, people who use the service, they use the free version. They get so much value out of using the free version. They feel guilty about using the free version, getting so much value from it, and not giving any money to the client. So they end up upgrading to the next service so they can pay LinkedIn some money.
Yeah. That's interesting. Oh, it's probably what I've done actually. Yeah, but so that's fascinating, isn't it? So maybe there is a case for you to actually charge something, or give people an option to give people the opportunity to actually pay for it in some way to make them.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at your worksheet and the donation, and that's something that I think we'll look at and say if people see the value in it and they would like to perhaps make a donation to a charity on behalf if they feel that they need to do that. It might be a way to address it.
That's working really well for me, and dare I say, it's working really well for the charity too. I've raised thousands of dollars for that charity actually by now. It's quite surprising.
I think there's some powerful psychology at work here. I think you're familiar with the law of reciprocity.
Yes.
Or this idea of reciprocity, people when someone does something for you and you get value from it, the natural response is to want to do something back.
Yeah.
And if you stop that flow somehow because there's no outlet for people to show how much they value that, then you kind of close down the flow. I'm wondering if maybe that could be putting a bit of a barrier. Invisible barrier in the way of clients signing up for your service because there's no way for them to show their value.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's great.
We do need to move on. So you want to say a last thing about that, Tanya, before I mute you again?
No, that's fine. I'll just say thank you, and it's something I'll certainly look at. And you've great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's see if I can mute you in. Yes, and then I've got to. Right, cool. Moving on. Anybody have any other questions at this point? Any other thing come up for anyone? That's great. Good. So let's see what our time is like. I think we need to move on. Yeah, very much so. Thanks for all those questions and that conversation, Tanya. That was really powerful. So we'll get to a series of suggested actions and steps, but before we get into action, this is all about sales. It's just that was that. And remember, this is too much to talk about, so too much to cope with. So the sales thing is just another topic. It's just another one of those many things that that sits on your shoulders and weighs you down. All those hundreds of business development priorities. It's just too much. So remember, I asked you to focus and write down your most pressing issue. What is the biggest challenge in your business right now? Have a look at it. I trust it's slightly bigger than this girl's issue. Woman's issue is that
it's a big issue. That
it is. It is.
But the rest of that sandwich issue.
That's right. So we're going to give you some information about how you can take a couple of the effective next steps with all the stuff we talked about, and to help you move out of feeling overwhelmed and not knowing where to focus next and how to move forward. So Ian and I are actually going to give you some really cool stuff to help you move forward with your most pressing issue. And this is what you're going to get. First of all, everybody's going to get a copy of my first book in ebook or audio book form for free, for nix, nada. It will be in, you get that in the email that you're getting tomorrow with the recording link and all that sort of stuff. Second, for those of you who want to, I want to help you take a couple of big steps forward around your most pressing issue. So what I'm offering every one of you who is keen to take me up on that is a one-on-one coaching session of 75 minutes via Skype, ideally, or we can do it face-to-face in my office as well, but Skype is fine. And all you have to do is to make a one-off donation of $100 to my favourite charity in Sydney. It's the Wayside Chapel. It's the local homeless church and refuge centre here in the centre of Sydney. And that's my offer. And then the offer from Ian. What are you giving to people here, Ian?
Well, what we can do is people can download the first chapters of the GoGiver books at the GoGiverWay.com.au website. You can download the first 2 chapters of the book, and if you like what you read and you'd like to know more, then we're offering access to the books at a special new Perspectives price of $29.95 for both, and normally $44.90. So happy to make that available to anybody on the call that might be interested.
That's great. So 4 things that you can do something with. 1, you can get my book in ebook form, and you get the link to that, or you can make a donation to $100 to the Wayside Chapel and have a 75-minute session on your most pressing issue with me by Skype. You can download the first chapters of the 2 GoGiver books from Ian for free, and if you like them, you can get both of them for the price of one, effectively, for $29.95. So, and those deals are the best deal you've had all year to take your business a step forward. Trust me on that, with a capital T. Roland, a comment from Brad. Scott sitting there with you. He had computer issues. He's very interested in the 1-to-1 too. Registered but sat here with me. Yeah, cool. All right. Sorry. Yeah, Scott, look, I'd love to talk to you. And the link is, all you have to do is, well, you can go to that link there, tiny.cc sales L page, and all the detail of the offer and everything is there, as well as on the webinar worksheet, and you'll get the link again tomorrow. So next steps. This is what we're going to do next, because we're into action now. First thing I want you to do is this. I want to ask you to reflect on 2 questions. Are you taking sales as seriously in your business as you take the stuff that you're in business for? And 2, are you creating enough trust with your prospects? Think about that. Think about that, those 2 questions. And this is what I want you to do. That's the 2 questions. Are you creating enough trust? These are the next steps. First of all, you need to set time for the actions. in the coming week. If you don't set time aside to do something with what you learned and the information I've given you today in the next few days, then coming on this webinar has simply been a waste of your time, plain and simple. The only thing that ultimately makes any difference is what actions you take. So go to the resources page, tiny.cc/salesl page. Take the time, read the articles in the book summary, watch the video by Brian Tracy, watch the GoGiver video, and here's a strange instruction. Read the articles, GoGiver video. This is on your worksheet as well, I think. Is that right? Is the scale there? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, it is. It's on page 9. The scale, that's your Master of Sales scale, and you can see it on the screen. So we're going to call this scale your Master of Sales scale, and 10 on that scale is that you are a sales machine. You convert more inquiries than you know what to do with, just about, and 0 is the opposite. The only sales you make are the ones where you have to discount your prices. Now place a mark on that scale for yourself. Now what I want you to do is this. I want you to brainstorm a list of 25 simple actions you could take tomorrow that will move you one step up that mastery of sales scale, if you took them. Please ensure that each of these actions is small, specific, so you can block out half an hour in your diary in the next week to actually do it. But just because you're writing, just be careful about this, just because you're writing the actions down doesn't actually mean you're going to do them yet, okay? We're just looking about things that you could do, maybe. Possibles. And they have to be possibles that are going to move you up that scale if you took them. But for now, just write them down. Anything goes. Silly, stupid, impossible, crazy, anything. Take time out to do that in the next day or so. Now, on your worksheet, we've actually started the list for you, just to give you an idea of some kind of actions that we're looking for. They're possible suggestions. Feel free to throw each and every one of them out. It's just as relevant for you, right? That they're the couple of suggested actions. 25 silly actions, big actions, little actions, but make sure they're actions, specific items that you can block out half an hour in your diary for. That's the trick. If you cannot block specific time out in your diary, it means it's a wish or an intention, and they're next to useless. So, last instruction. Now that you've listed those 25 actions that you might do, pick one. Pick one, which are you going to do next week? Pop it in, do it next week, make time in your diary for it. That's it, that's us, that's the offer that we made. Remember, all you got to do is make a $100 donation to the Wayside Chapel and you get a 75-minute session with me. There's a link on the page to get the, actually we need to put that link to order the books.
Okay.
Onto the webinar, onto the special page.
Okay.
Remind me of that. So make a donation. I hope you take it up. You're going to love it. The most fun donation you've ever made to anything. And the Wayside Chapel's going to love you as well. Any last questions? Any last questions? If you take nothing else away from this webinar, remind yourself of those questions all the time. Are you taking sales as seriously in your business as you take your stuff, the stuff that you're in business for? And are you creating enough trust with your prospects? Think about that. If you keep focusing on those two questions constantly, your life will change, I promise you. Any last comments, Ian?
Other than feel free to look me up on LinkedIn and connect. Love to make connections all the time, so feel free to say hi.
Cool, wonderful. Same goes for me. The recording is now going to be switched off. See you later. Wonderful to have you on board.
Thanks, guys.